And we are live once again here at PWP Nation. What's up, you guys? My name is Jay Aletto, and here we are tonight. We've got a fun show for you. We're going to have Christina Friscia returning to the show for her second appearance. We're going to be talking about her victory, her big win at the NPC Baltimore Gladiator competition. I believe the bikini competition was a regional finals, but she's going to shed much more light on that in just a few minutes. As always, thank you so much for joining me here on the program, here on PWP Nation, youtube.com/PWP Nation. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the support. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment if you enjoy the content. If you don't enjoy the content, please let me know why. I'd love to help you understand where I'm coming from and engage in civil discussion. Whether or not we agree on specifics or not, I think it's important to understand people's perspectives and discuss why things might be different between us all. But I am open to talking about anything. And that's one thing I wanted to literally discuss right now before Christina joins us in just a few minutes. Like, here's the thing. It's a preconceived notion if you have a certain, I would say, opinion on a specific topic that you're also going to fall in line with other popular topic opinions. So, for example, let me just use an easy one. If you're a Trump supporter, most likely people are going to believe that you're also in support of, I don't know, border control, which is a fair assessment. But a lot of the time, people have preconceived notions that being a Trump supporter means you're like racist or something on those lines. And that just is a bold-faced lie. And it's propaganda pushed by our institutions, by our politicians, and by our media. And it seems to happen across the gamut. Like, this is bleeding into other sectors. It's bleeding into the entertainment business. It's bleeding into other forms of media. It's bleeding into movies, Hollywood, music, everywhere. It's just bleeding. Podcasting, comedy. It's a problem, if you ask me. It's a little bit of a problem, but all you can really do is be true to yourself. And as I was talking about yesterday with Hotep Jesus, I mean, he believes that civil conversation and discourse is really the only way, and so do I. Like, I will chop it up with anyone, anybody. If you want to chop it up, if you want to talk about specific topics or whatever the case may be, I'm happy to discuss that with you at any time. All right. So I just want to make that abundantly clear that I'm wide open. I'm an open book, and would love to discuss anything with anyone all the time. But tonight we're going to have Christina Friscia, and that's exciting because she has been absolutely crushing. And we spoke to her a few weeks ago. Just to give you a brief overview, she was into her last few days before she had to compete on stage in front of judges. And the crazy thing about it, and we're going to talk a little bit about this because I'm definitely curious, is what, like, there are different judges and they have different criteria and they have a different mindset when it comes to judging. And that can be said for really anything. You can go into an MMA fight and one judge can see it one way, another judge can see it a different way, and the same thing for all competitions. So I believe that she crushed it, obviously. And I'm just not sure how she knows what criteria needs to be met before going into these competitions. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But there she is, the winner. Just incredible. She's going right into the next competition, which is just unbelievable. There's the, we'll talk more about this. There's the gladiator helmet, the Baltimore Gladiator champion. And I guess that's a sword of some sort. We'll talk about her trophies and whatnot. But yeah, she should be joining us in just a few minutes. So that'll be pretty cool to discuss with her, especially a victory. Like, she was going to come back on the show. She agreed to come back on the show and talk to me about whatever the result was, you know. But it's just awesome that she won. You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome. That's amazing. So pumped for her. I think she deserved it, obviously. And there's, you know what, dude? Here's one thing I wanted to talk about. And obviously, she worked really hard to get in that shape. She had to diet. She had to eat clean. She had to eat a specific amount of food to look that way at specific times. You have to be super disciplined, right? And it's funny to me that, you know, there are certain people that don't understand how far having a healthy lifestyle and getting yourself in just decent physical condition can take you. Like, people just don't get that. You see this push for the shot. Like, everyone's pushing for the shot. You see everyone pushing for different agendas out there. And we're never pushing. There's never like a mainstream overall push to get America healthy, to get America in shape, to like crush heart disease, to crush cancer, to crush all these things that can be mitigated with, I'm not saying they will be. Like, you could be the healthiest guy in the world, the healthiest girl in the world, and you could still get cancer. You could still get heart failure. You could still have this stuff happen to you. But it's all about odds. Like, you want the odds to work in your favor. And one of the ways for the odds to work in your favor is to keep yourself in physical condition. Like, get out there, run around a little bit, get some sunlight, drink some protein powder, have black coffee instead of coffee filled with sugar and creamers and all kinds of fancy pantsy nonsense. Drink your coffee black. That's how I drink it. Once you go black, when it comes to coffee, you never go back. So I will only drink black coffee. I'm not drinking any other coffee. You can save all of that mishmash BS that people put in their coffee. All black all day. Plus, you could actually taste the coffee. Like, you actually understand what the coffee tastes like when it's black. When you put like sugar and milk in it and all that disgusting, gross stuff, you're just masking the coffee taste, and that's completely insane to me. So, but yeah, a lot to talk about tonight. I just, you know what, man? Like, I love talking on Twitter. I absolutely adore it. But there are times where it is just unbearable. And today was one of those days, but we won't talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about, however, is Christina Friscia has joined us live. What's up, Christina? What's going on?
Hello. Good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And I started the show talking about how we have the champion. Now, let me see if I can remember this. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. The NPC Baltimore Gladiator 2021. Hold on. 2021 NPC Miss Baltimore Gladiator champion. I'm so pumped because you were going to come back in the show, even if you weren't the champion, even if you finished in second place, you were going to come back and talk about it.
Let me take these off.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Staring at a screen all day.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I was shot out. Like after 5 o'clock, completely shot. So I'm actually happy.
I start turning down the second the like light starts going down outside. I'm like the same way. Like by 8 o'clock, I'm like, time for bed.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about this, because we spoke last time about how it's been a long time since you were on stage. You're a little bit. I'm not going to say nervous. I mean, you're at home on that stage.
I was nervous.
Yeah. Go into it. I mean, you won. Tell us about it.
So it was a wild day. I'll just tell y'all the whole show day. So pretty much it was on the 13th. So not this previous weekend, the weekend before in Baltimore. So I drove up Friday night. You typically get to a show like the night before. Sometimes if you fly, you might even want to get there like 2 nights before to give yourself a day to kind of depuff from the flight a bit. But I drove there. It was only 3 hours from Staten Island. So smooth ride up, no problems. I don't know if some of you may know who Larry Legend is. I know there's a wrestling crowd here. So Larry Legend is out in Baltimore. He's one of my dearest, closest friends. So when I saw that there was a show announced in Baltimore and the show that I was previously thinking about doing was canceled, I was like, well, what better opportunity to go back on stage than to go to Baltimore and, hopefully be able to have Larry there with me. That would be so amazing to have his like energy and him in the crowd cheering me on. Like I could just hear it now, and I was so excited to be able to do that with him. And we made all these plans. I got the hotel room. I was going to pick him up, yada, yada. And then I find out that because of COVID, they wound up splitting how the show happened. So typically in normal times, how the shows are run is the morning, it's men and women together. It's called prejudging, but that's technically where you're judged. And then at night, you have the night show, which is where they do like the confirmation rounds to make sure that like their decision is final. And then the award ceremony happens. But because of COVID, they were doing all the men in the morning and then all the women at 3 p.m. And Larry does a podcast with MCW or something like that out in Baltimore. And his podcast starts at 3 p.m. So because of that, he wasn't able to see me on stage. But honestly, we were thinking about it and we both agree that it was all for the best because it gave me the chance the night before to actually get some sleep. Kind of, there were hiccups there, but get some sleep and kind of do my thing. And then The next day, just wake up early. I had so much to do that morning. Like, it's a lot of bullshit. You have athlete meeting at 7:30 in the morning. That's mandatory. Then I have to go back to my hotel. Then I have to go back to the venue for 12 o'clock for tan touch-ups. Go back to the hotel, do my makeup, all that stuff, get ready, go back for 3 p.m. So in the morning during the athlete meeting, the promoter was saying, because it's 2 different shows, the show is going to run very quickly. So for women, get there at 3 p.m. It's going to run fast, but bikini is always last. So there was actually a girl in the crowd that was like, does bikini need to show up at 3 p.m. or can they show up a little bit later? So the guy was like, show up at 3 p.m. You don't want to miss your class. You don't want to pay all this money for the show and do all this work, prepping and everything like that, and miss your class. Because then there's nothing that I can do. Like, there's nothing we can do to help you. You're out, Mm-hmm. So pretty much I go back to the hotel, and the night before I'm trying to get sleep. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, Baltimore opened up that day. So people were back at bars and the world was happening again. So I specifically picked the quiet floor of the hotel because I wanted to be able to get sleep. I knew I had a big day ahead of me. 3 o'clock, 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning, these 2 drunken people come stumbling into the hotel room right next to me. And all of a sudden I start hearing this bang, 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 bang. I'm like, what the fuck is that? It wakes me up. I'm pissed off. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to be up in 2 hours, And then I start hearing moaning and I start hearing groaning. And these fucking people right next door are having ravenous animal sex at 4 o'clock in the fucking morning. The night I'm trying to get sleep for my show. And I'm like, of course,
Yeah, perfect timing. And you're the main event. You just said.
As soon as I found out what it was, it didn't last long. So that was a good thing. It wasn't a 2-hour ordeal. It was really only probably 10 minutes worth of sounds. But at that point I was just kind of up. So I knew I was trying to get more sleep. I'm I cannot stay up right now because by the time I get on at 3 p.m., like I said, I'm going to sleep soon, so I know my body. I know by 3 p.m. I'm usually shot if I'm up early. So there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this day and be my best to step on stage at that point if I'm going to be so exhausted already. So I got to try and get more sleep. And I don't even know if I really got more sleep at that point between 4 o'clock and 6:30, 7 o'clock when I actually got up, but whatever. So I did my thing. And by the time I got back from the meeting in the morning, I had gone back already for tanning, for touch-ups, and then I had a 3-hour gap to get ready and everything. And I'm I gotta lay down. At that point, I was I am already feeling it. I gotta lay down for an hour, just an hour tops.
Yeah.
Okay, so that turns into an hour and a half, almost 2 hours where I'm laying down. I gave myself 30 minutes to get ready to be there for 3 o'clock. So obviously that didn't happen. I didn't even show up to the venue until around 3:30, and they're already lining bikini up. And I'm like, what class is that? Freaking out, panic mode, because you want to be backstage for a bit before you get on stage. You need time to pump up. I didn't even have my eyelashes on yet. I had so many things I had to still do, and I had to still get touched up again for tan, because that's where they call the glaze. They put the shine on you and stuff, and glue you in and all this shit. So I'm panicking. I run up to one of the expediters. I'm like, what class is that? He's like, it's novice or something. So I know novice is in the beginning of the bikini division. So I'm like, all right, I probably have 15 minutes before I get on stage maybe. And I don't know. I was just in a mad dash at that point. I ran. I put my eyelashes on. I got a rice cake with peanut butter, a little bit of honey. I start pumping up with my bands and my weights. I'm just trying to perfect everything. And I'm at this point, it's up to God. I have done it all. It's out of my hands. It's really, there's nothing more I can do. So they lined me up for my class. And the other girls that were in my class actually had been on stage previously in the novice class. That's the class where if you never placed first at a show, you can compete as a novice. But I've placed first previously, so I can't compete in that division. But to get qualified to go to the national shows, you can only do that in the open division anyway. So the novice gives you more stage time. It gives you that time if your friends are in the audience to take those pictures and stuff. But in like retrospective, like progressing and competing, it really doesn't mean anything for your career. So I've never even competed in novice myself. I've only ever done open because I've always had the goal of getting qualified, you know? So the expediters backstage, I must say, like, did not like me, like, for whatever reason. There was like this little pre-room to the lineup stage area room, and then there was like another room within that. It was like a weird little backstage area, but I was not far from the lineup area, but they were like calling numbers out to get ready to line up. It wasn't to line up and stand here, you guys are next on stage. It's like, all right, stand nearby. And I'm like wandering a little bit away, but like very aware of now what's going on. And I'm not an idiot. I know like what the hell to do, you know? And they're like fucking making me nervous. They're like yelling at me like, 113, where are you? We told you to stay nearby. I'm like, I'm 5 feet away looking in a fucking mirror. Like, guys, chill out. Like, well, it's not that serious. And then, you know, like we get on stage, and then once I got on stage and they moved me to center, I knew that I had probably gotten first or second, but I didn't want to like say it, you know, like, because once you get moved to the center, they usually will do like what's called like the first call out. So years ago, they used to actually only do 5. So it goes from the middle out. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you get to that middle spot, you're probably first or second or something like that. Now they do a 6-person call out. So you kind of are always a little like, where am I in this crowd? I don't know if I'm first or second, but I had a good idea. So once I got that confirmation because finals was immediately after. So it's not like we have a usual show, like a huge gap of hours in between where you're wondering what your placing is. And like, you don't want to fuck up and you don't want to eat too much at that time or anything like that. So like at that point, it was like a 10-minute gap and finals were on, and I had gotten the first place award, and I was like, fuck yes, like I'm going up for the overall. And like, I don't even like at first when I went up on stage before I like, I'll go back a little. I think my posing is usually pretty good. Like I enjoy posing. I enjoy practicing it. I enjoy making my routine and moving my body. Like I have a 15-year dance background. Like it kind of comes natural to me. But before I had gotten on stage, my voice is like shot. I'm sorry, but
it's okay. Mine too. Yeah, it's interesting because you seem to have I've seen like some of your practicing when I was doing some research and whatnot, and you seem to have total control of every movement. Like you know exactly where you're going before you go there.
And it's important. I actually today, I sent a couple of videos over to a girl in like a Facebook group. She was a first-time competitor, and she was posting pictures of herself. And she was like, you know, if anyone has any critique, like how to fix my front pose, blah, blah, blah. And I was like happy to send her over. Like I made her like a 2 or 3 minute video and just like did it on my own and gave her like tips because like I wish that those resources were available to me as a first-time competitor years ago. And they really weren't. Like it was all just like finding it out on your own along the way and stumbling across info, but most of the time just like experiencing it at shows yourself and like figuring it out. But like, so to go back to what I was saying, when I was waiting in line to go on stage for the first time, my nerves kicked in like they had never kicked in before. Like, cause I think at that point it was really like the pressure was on to prove myself that like all this work and all these years away, like they're either going to love me or hate me. Like at that point, you know, like if I get a 3rd place, like it's not good enough, you know, like I didn't come there for 3rd. I didn't do this for this long for 3rd. You don't go there to lose. So I got up there and I was like a baby flamingo. Like my legs were like blah, 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 wiggling. I was like certain that the judges were going to be able to see like I was shaking. I was visibly nervous. I mean, my pictures don't look like I was posing that bad, but I just know internally, like I didn't nail my posing like I felt like I could have in my head, you know? So like at that point I was like, shit, like fuck, did I just really fuck it up for myself, you know, like getting in my own head too much. But then once I found out that I had gotten first, I was like, all right, so now when I go up for this overall, I have all the confidence in the world now. Like it has kicked in because now I know that they like me. I know that they like what they saw. So now I have to make sure out of all these other girls that got placed first, I'm the best, you know? So
Real quick. Let's hold on for 1 second there, because you kind of mentioned overall. Take us through that one more time slowly. So you go on stage a total of 3, you're judged 3 times throughout the night?
so you go on stage. Technically, the judging happens during the first round of prejudging. So like I said, the way the show was run this time, it was very different from how many shows used to run prior to COVID, and some may still run like that. It's just this typical show split it into men in the morning, 9 a.m. to whatever time, 12 p.m., and then women from 3 to 5:30, 6 o'clock when it ended. So for me, yeah, I wound up probably getting on stage at like 3:45 that day. I was off by 3:50. You know, like you're up there very quickly. You only have like a 15-second posing routine, and then they do the comparisons, which are very fast, and then you're escorted off stage. And then so at that point we wait backstage, and they start, because my division was last, they immediately went into finals. So that was bodybuilding, and then they go to the physique girls, the figure girls, the wellness girls, and then back to bikini again. So I waited around for maybe another like hour or so. And it really wasn't that long of a wait. It kind of just like flew by. And before I knew it, I was like getting my award and waiting in line for the overall.
Hell yeah. Now let me bring up a photo of you on stage, because I feel like that is kind of what we need to look at right now. And so you can talk about this, because this moment, that smile on your face, it looks like you have it at that point.
I do. That was the pictures
this
where
is the win.
that was the win. That was after I already got the overall and I was taking my individual pictures. So at that point, there was a couple of pictures that are actually on NPC News Online prior to that, like a couple seconds prior, because immediately when I found out I got the overall, because like, so when I'm up there for the overall, just the natural progression of how they had lined us up, I was already in the middle. So when they're doing the comparisons, they wound up moving me out one spot. And I'm like, oh, hell no, I refuse to lose. So once they moved me out that spot, they did another face the front. All right, ladies, turn around. All right, walk to the back. And then they do the whole turn around, walk back thing. And once I did that walk back, I was like, yo, you have never seen a model like me before. Like, these girls might know how to pose and do their posing routine, and like that's cute, but like I know how to work my fucking angles, and I know how to like wow the judges and like make love in their eyes, you know, like really like
sure.
And like that's what you got to really be, that girl on stage. Like all their eyes need to be directed to you. And because at that point, like also the stage was like waxed hardwood, so at that point, it wasn't even as much as like me being nervous and having like jello legs, but it was a very difficult stage to walk on. So like some of the steps you would take, you're kind of hoping you don't slip out and bust your ass in these fucking heels, you know?
Did you get to walk in the stage? Did you get to walk in the stage at all? Like practice? Did you get to go?
No,
you didn't get to go up there at all.
You don't get show up and that's it. Around a couple hours before the show. Yeah, no. It's go from the second you get backstage, like especially at this show because it ran so friggin' fast. Like typically, like in the past when I've done shows in like New York or New Jersey, I would go like to prejudging at 9 a.m. and probably wouldn't even get on stage for bikini some days until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like wow. I would be backstage for hours and hours, and you're just waiting around, and like there's nothing to do but wait. So like at this show, that's why I gave myself, I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. Like what's a big 30 minutes? I'm usually I'll probably wait at least an hour. Like I told myself I probably won't even get on stage till 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you know, like based on the size of the athlete meeting I saw and stuff. But boy, was I fucking wrong. Like, because when you think about it, the bodybuilding division only had one girl. So she won by default. And like figure and those other like bigger divisions, more muscular divisions for women don't have as many people in them. So they do go by much faster. Bikini is the biggest class for everyone, you know? So like the girl in the middle, if you see, she also doesn't have a helmet because she couldn't win an overall by herself. We're just going to gift her a helmet, you know? Right, so she hasn't scored like all the first place winners, but like only the girls who actually had some competition actually get the helmet.
Did you wear the helmet at all? Did you put it on? Did you take a selfie with the helmet on?
No, I didn't. So when I left the show and I went up to one of the judges to like thank them for the win and just like talk about feedback and stuff like that. He actually specifically told me don't put the helmet on. So I just listened to his advice and haven't. I know that I looked through like one of the men's divisions. I think it was like the bodybuilding division. And one of the guy who had won actually had the helmet on and he was like posing in a picture. So I don't know if like maybe the judge, like something went wrong at that point with the helmet being on his head and like now he knows not to put it on, but like he forewarned me. But yeah, it was like, it's a cool helmet. I just don't know where the hell I'm going to put it. Like it's very heavy. It's big and heavy and they greased it. It actually is like covered in grease because in shipping and stuff, they make it so it doesn't get like damaged and dented and scuffed up or whatever. It's like oily. It's weird.
What you want to do is put that thing on a shelf somewhere in a glass case and
yeah,
just
that's what I was
back
thinking.
on it.
I gotta get like one of those like display case things and like throw it in there because I'm gonna
Totally.
probably get more trophies at some point. I hope so. I'm gonna need a little area for my trophies.
You are going to get more trophies, and let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, before we jump on to what your next move is, because I noticed that you're kind of jumping right into your next competition. I want to talk to you about that, but first of all, is this a sword? Like, what is this? Is this like
that's the first place trophy? It's trophy. That's what they gave. It's a sword.
Oh, it's a sword. That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
really
sword.
cool.
They give the sword when you win your class, and then the helmet when you win the overall in your class.
That's badass. I love how you use flabbergasted. That's great in your post. Now you're jumping into
because honestly, when I was up for the overall, the other girls looked good, and there was actually another girl there who was up for the overall with me, who was coached by one of the IFBB pros that I have looked up to for years. And the pro was at the show as well because she was backstage and she was giving away like a raffle prize or something like that. So when I saw this girl, I actually thought that it was her sister or something because the girl that was competing, because she looked exactly like this pro. And I actually, once I was lined up with her for the overall, I was like, are you Jen's sister? And she's like, no, oh my God, thank you. I was like, you guys look like fucking twins. They look like exact twins. And I'm like, yo, like, if anything, this girl's going to win just because, like, she knows Jen. Jen is at this show. She's a beautiful girl, you know, like, of course. So, like, and then they moved me out. And then this girl's directly next to me in the first place spot. So I'm like, oh, all right, you know, but then they moved me back in to the actual first place spot. So I was like, all right, I think I got it at this point. And then also, so what they did too, which was fun and I really, really enjoyed, was right before they announced who the winner was after we did our comparisons, they said, all right, ladies, do a bikini pose down. So like in men's bodybuilding, they usually do a pose down at the end. And it's that round where the men are flexing on each other. They're bumping each other. They're like going all out, you know, they're going the crazy. Yeah, they do everything. And they're trying to like really show who's like boss, you know. For the women, we can't really do all that. So it's just like they gave us 30 seconds to just like sex the audience with our posing and just flip our hair and do our walks. And that's when I was like, it is fucking on.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at that point, because like I just knew that like it is what it is. I gotta give it my all. Like I'm in the first place spot. If I don't right now, like it's anyone's game, you know? So once they lined us up and we're standing there for like 30 seconds, because they also fuck with you before they announce it. So like you don't even know, like for a couple seconds where you stand, you're still worried, like you want it so bad, you know? And then they said, all right, we have our winner, 113, but with the muffle in the mic, it sounded like 114. So at first I didn't react. And then they said Christina Friscia. So once I reacted, immediately I just like this and I just started like crying. Like I couldn't even control the tears coming out of my eyes. So like a couple pictures prior to that one you had posted before, like it's me with like ugly crying face, just like looking back, like I can't believe this, like oh my God. And there was like someone on stage, like yeah, that one, like congratulating me. Like I was really just like flabbergasted. Exactly.
There you go. It was a long road back. You told us last time about kind of your journey going back to this. Now, what's the next step? I mean, I understand this was absolutely huge. When I saw the news, I think shortly after you posted it, I was like, hell yeah, I was pumped. I did a post about it, and I'm still super excited for you. So, what's the next step? Now you go on to the next. What is it? Nationals now?
we go into the national level of shows, so each national show has its own like name. So the next show that is the next national show is in May. It's called NPC Junior USA's. That's actually kind of a difficult show to go pro in. So basically, when you go to your national shows, that's where you compete to win your IFBB pro card, where you can then compete in the same federation that Arnold competed in, and Sergio and all the best of the best, Phil Heath, Kai Green, all those guys, you know? So being able to compete one day at the Arnold as a pro, hashtag flabbergasted, love it. So yeah, being able to compete at like the Arnold one day or the Olympia is obviously the ultimate goal. It takes time, so I'm not expecting it to happen tomorrow. There's plenty of people out there who have done 30 national shows and until they went pro, you know, like sometimes it's like you got to play the long game. But then again, there are outliers who go to their first national show and go pro. So like you really don't know. It's like the lotto, like you got to be in it to win it. So at this point, I'm just trying to get my face in front of these national judges. They obviously like what they saw, at least some of them, because I know some of the head judges for the IFBB judged my show. In fact, the guy that was the head judge at my show was one of the head judges for the IFBB. So him and making eye contact with him during like my round and being able to like win that overall in front of him is like a big win, you know? I mean, they typically also say in like judging seminars and talks and stuff like that, that you really shouldn't consider going to a national show until you win an overall, because you probably will get blown out of the water. Because the way the NPC works is now, because of COVID, they used to do this back in the day when I used to compete, and then they changed it a little the past few years. But now you just need to place top 5 in your class and you can compete at nationals. But with that said, like I said, at my show, some of the classes only had 4 girls in them. So they're qualified for nationals by default, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily ready to be on a national stage or be really, because when you're on a national stage, it's because you're ready to be on a pro stage. Sure. So you don't really, I mean, yeah, you can probably like bring it in for nationals and try your luck, but like, I think that I want to just go for it. You know, like I really just want to get in front of these judges, see where I stand amongst other girls who are nationally qualified. And like, maybe I could surprise myself again and pull out another overall, like, because at Junior USA's, so that's the thing, is typically at like bigger national shows, all you need to do is place top 2 in just your class alone and you get your pro card, which is like not a, you know, sometimes there's 40 girls in the class, so I'm not going to say it's not a hard thing, but being able to get one for top 2 isn't that bad. But for Junior USA's, you need to place first in your class, and then you need to get in the top 4 of the overall to get your pro card. So you got to kind of win twice. But again, I won an overall there, so I'm just hoping that maybe I can win another overall there and, you know, like not have to do 10,000 national shows, because who really wants to? Like, no one wants to continue doing national shows. You want to go on that pro stage, you know, like that's really what everyone wants to do. So I'd be lying to myself if I said I can't wait to continue doing nationals forever. Like, I'm sure if I'm doing 10 national shows, eventually I'm going to be like, wow, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like, right, yeah.
You want to go to WrestleMania. You want to go to that.
I want to go to the WrestleMania of bodybuilding. Exactly. I want to go to the Olympia. That's funny because most people say the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, but I'm going to start using the WrestleMania of bodybuilding.
Damn right. So here's a question I have for you. This experience was obviously a learning experience, something that you've evolved and grown from your words. Give us some kind of what are some, let me backtrack. What are some of the biggest lessons that you learned about, not only about the sport, because what you're doing is a sport, not only about the sport, but about yourself over this journey?
I would say that I don't know. It's hard to say because I feel like I got like lost along the way at some point where like I kind of lost sight of who I am. So if anything, I would say that because of that, it's kind of taught me that if you just go after what your heart is telling you is actually like your pride and joy and passion, like eventually, and you do the work attached to it, eventually it will pay off. Because like I really was into this fitness thing a couple years, like 5 years ago, back when I was competing. but I didn't want to do the work attached to wanting to get to the end goal. Like I wanted to just like think that I could just like slide by in these shows and eventually like I would just get lucky and like get a supplement sponsor, or like I was pretty enough to just win a show or whatever it was in my headspace back then. Like I know I had talked about this on the last episode, was like I just wasn't good enough back then. Like I needed more time. I needed to take the time away to grow and to build and to, most importantly, learn about the sport and learn about proper nutrition and proper bodybuilding. Like, you know, being a bikini competitor is very hard to explain to people who don't understand the sport, because immediately they think like I'm like a Hooters girl. And it's not. Like you said, it actually is a sport, and I train just as hard as the physique girls. Like I train harder than some of the guys, you know. I guarantee I lift more than some of the guys, you know.
Definitely.
And like along this way, like I just have really learned that like this is what like my heart really like loves. And like never once going to the gym have I been like, wow, I fucking hate it here. Like I wish I didn't have to do this. Like every time I'm just like, this is awesome. Like I love like I love looking in the mirror and like feeling like, wow, that fucking works. Like it's so gratifying, because it's really the only thing that you can only get out of it what you put into it. Like there's so many things in life that you could bust your ass all the time and never see any gratification out of. But like with bodybuilding and with training, like you'll always see some sort of result if you put in that work. Like it's inevitable, because it's physiology, you know, like.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I want to touch on myself, personal experience is I mentioned on the previous talk we had that I used to bodybuild too. I didn't take it to any serious levels, but it was a personal challenge for me. I wanted to get jacked, and I achieved it. I got up to around 230, and I always hit this wall when it was time to get to the gym where I'd be like, I'm sore today. I don't feel like going. Maybe I'll just go, right? Then I get to the parking lot and I sit in my car and I'm looking at the Burger King across the street and I'm like,
Like
do I
20
go eat?
times, make a decision.
Yeah. You're looking at your phone, you're listening to music, you're trying to pump yourself up. Finally,
Yeah.
you go in the gym. And then when you get in and you start going, you're like, why was I procrastinating? Why was I not getting in here ASAP and getting my work in?
Something that I started like using like a corny hashtag just to kind of get people going. Like when I first started like getting back into fitness again, you know, and I made it like public that I was going to try and do another show after all these years away. Something that I learned that really works for me, like if I was ever in a mindset where I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Like once I got into the groove and I was really on prep, like those feelings really stopped coming, because the progress was more like addicting than sitting home and being lazy, you know. But is like just give it 10, meaning just give it 10 minutes. Go to the gym and just give yourself 10 minutes of walking on the treadmill. Don't even lift anything yet if you're really not in the mood and you're kind of forcing yourself to be there, because I guarantee you once those 10 minutes are up, you're going to be friggin' psyched and you're going to be like, all right, I'm ready to lift heavy weight, or I'm ready to do something, or you're going to want to stay on the treadmill a little bit longer, because it's just really like playing that game that your brain plays with you of like not wanting to leave its comfort zone. Like your brain is still very primitive in the way it responds to certain stimuli, like changing its environment or like needing to change its comfort level. Your body doesn't want you to be unsafe. That's why people like don't really understand that you got to kind of play against what your brain is kind of making you think you need to do, because it's not what you really need to do. You know what you need to do, like psychologically, but your body is going to do what it's going to do until it learns a new way and you give it new patterns to follow. Like as long as your fallback is always like, all right, we're going to give up now and not go, it becomes so easy to use that as your constant excuse, because you haven't taught yourself any different. Like, so if you could trick your brain into just like, all right, just get the fuck up before I make these excuses and before I give myself the 500 ways where I could think of something else to do right now, just put my stupid leggings on. If I have my sneakers on, I'm already halfway out of the house, you know, like these little things, like they do matter, because it's really what gets the change happening. Like it happens like that. It's not really like change doesn't happen like automatically. It happens after years of doing the same thing and eventually being so sick of your own bullshit that you need to do something different. Like, so yeah, the just give it 10 is something that like for me has been great, because it has worked every time. So
Yeah. And that, I actually wrote that down because that should be the name of your first book. Just saying, give it
I
10.
wrote a book already, but it was a marketing book.
Second book. We got a comment here. Always bust my chops and say like it's into your next one, and cap it off. Tell everybody where to find you and what they need to do to achieve their goals once again.
Totally. So basically my mindset for writing this is when I saw my stage shots. I mean, number one, I can't say that I am like have many critiques with my stage shot. I think the package I brought is pretty amazing, hands down. But
Yeah.
I had gotten very lean going into this show, like leaner than I really had wanted to get almost. I went down to 113 pounds. And it was, yeah, I mean, that was smaller than I ever was on stage, but I was also had more muscle than I had ever had on stage, and also was significantly leaner than I had ever been on stage. So all that considering, my stage weight was around 113 pounds. And going into the show, I had kind of had in the back of my mind that I want to like reverse diet my way in. So when you do like a drastic cut for a show, you don't want to just like go back to eating in a surplus and eating like without tracking, because you will rebound and you will gain rebound weight that is very hard to lose, because your body again is primitive and it puts itself in survival mode. Because right now my body doesn't know the difference between me being on a bikini prep and me being starving in the middle of a desert. You know, like all it knows is fat restores and water. So basically, at that point, I knew I had to, in order to maintain the fullness in my muscle, because this is something that I'm happy you brought up, because my mom actually asked me about this post, because she was like, so what does this mean? You're bulking now? And I was like, no, like, all right. So, and you're not, and she's not the only one that had said something. Someone else said something about it today too. So basically, when I was going into the show, I did test this theory post-show with Larry. I ate a cheeseburger with bacon and a bunch of French fries after the show. And I told myself, if I wake up tomorrow morning with full glutes and like I look dope, like I just ate a nice juicy friggin' burger, I'm going to do this before my next show. Because prior to the show, I was still dieting. I didn't wind up reversing my way in. I didn't wind up increasing my carbs significantly, like a little bit, but not to the point that I probably could have to bring a really full physique. Because when you start dieting down and you drop your carbs and you're not eating to your body's like maximum potential and fullness, you wind up looking a little bit watery or a little bit stringy on stage or a little bit this. And looking at my stage shots, I know my glutes could have been rounder on the side. I just know that. I know that they could have been fuller. And that was a critique for me seeing that. So now I know how I looked after I ate that crazy burger. And I know that like even this past week away from, I didn't even train all last week. I didn't really watch my diet, like some meals, yes, but like I was enjoying myself too throughout the week, and I didn't gain even 1 pound from stage weight. So my metabolism is in a good spot now where like I can actually start, now that I have these next couple 8 weeks before nationals, to actually increase my food going into a show. So I'm not dieting my way into a show. I'm eating my way into it. And that will give me a much fuller, a much more healthy looking physique, because that's also what they're looking for in bikini. And I have to keep in mind that national judges have much different expectations from local level judges. It's good that there were national level judges at my show for the overall decision, but there's going to be new judges at every show. And I just know that the standard for bikini, they're not looking for a 6-pack. They're not looking for like veins coming down my arm. They're looking for my shape, my size, my symmetry, my balance, my beauty. They're looking for like that, but they don't want you to look like a muscle girl. They want you to look like you just work out and happen to look like that, like effortlessly, you know, although it's anything but that's what they're trying to make the division like. It's supposed to be the entryway division into the sport, where a girl can see that my physique probably isn't that far off from something she thinks she can attain herself. So let's give it a go, you know? And, so going into the next show, I just know that I want to be able to really bring my fullest, roundest, bubbliest physique, because I don't want to look like I have been dieting, like, put it that way. Like, it gets to a point when you get so lean that it starts to show in your skin, it starts to show in just everything, you know? So
Sure.
it's trying to keep that balance between, like, because also you get to a point when you're super lean before you start gaining a bunch of body fat, that it's called a spillover, when you go over your carbs and your body has a little